Welcome to part 3 of our journey into this guide to the human design system. The subject of today is the Godhead, the program, which is the great controlling mechanism that emerges out of the movement of the crystals of consciousness in the way in which it is organized. The body graph that is referred to as the just now is the energies that are there right now, passing through everything. One of the things that has been most consistent in my work was trying to get people interested in the program to be able to see what the program is and how the program works, because it's an extraordinary educator as you watch it. When the very first human design rave ephemeris was created, it's really what transformed my own process. Before my experience, I was deeply nihilistic, and I certainly wasn't somebody who was mystical or interested in the esoteric for that matter. As I learned to watch the energies in the just now, it was even more of a shock than my experience with the voice that gave me the human design system. When my experience was over, and obviously those kinds of things because they don't fit into any ordinary frame of being able to look at experience, the fact was that it's hard not to assume that you've gone through some kind of very mad, very crazy thing. And the rise of doubt, I'm somebody who has the fourth gate, so I'm always open to the pressures that are there, the pressures of doubt. It was then that I began my own experiment. I guess it's why that word has really become so important in the way in which we approach this knowledge, to approach it as an experiment, to see the truth for oneself. I laid out for myself a lunar ephemeris. That is, with the moon being the fastest moving object in the wheel, it was possible for me to track the moon through the various gates. There were no computer programs at the time, and these were rather involved calculations, to be able to follow the moon through the gates in order to be able to see its impact on me. It was not something that I was ready to accept on the voice's word. I had to feel it to believe it. I had to feel it to know it in the language of my own individuality. It was an extraordinary experience. I have an open solar plexus center, and I only have one gate coming out of the solar plexus center, and it's unconscious. And yet there are a number of ways in which my solar plexus center can be activated by a single activation to a number of solar plexus gates. I watched the moon go through those gates. Because of the serendipity of where I was experientially in my life, that is, I had been living alone for a very long time and was as clean of outside influences as one could be, I suppose that I was deeply sensitive to the impact of this inanimate object 200-odd thousands miles away. It's arbitrary what appeared, at least from the level of consciousness that I had at the time. This movement in the sky is hardly perceivable in the eye. This movement was going to change the way that I was going to feel, and was going to change the way in which I was going to deal with the experience of being here on this plane. It's really an amazing thing. It brought the taste of people into my life. I have 2 older sisters, both of whom make connections to me that lead to emotional conditioning. That is, emotional conditioning on me. It was so obvious to me, and just being so attuned to that movement of the moon opening and closing these doors, that I could feel the people who in my life had constantly opened those doors. I could have a taste of them. It was almost as if it was them. The homogenized world lives in a truly profound ignorance, and that is emboldened by its enormous vanity, that it assumes that it is in control of this and that, in control of your own life, in control of destiny, in control of what's going on, and if not in control, working at it. And not for a moment do you understand that suddenly that day that you have the ability to do this or that moment that something comes through to you that brings this or that, the assumption that you are the one responsible, and you're not, and you don't know it. The vast majority of human beings walking around out there do not understand that they are deeply programmed. You can hear them speak the keynotes. Oh, that was one of my favorite things. Watch the talking heads any given day, watch the program, see where the activations are, look at the keynotes of the gates and the lines that are there in the program, and listen to them come out of people's mouths. And in their assumption, in their vanity, in their ignorance, it's these are my thoughts, these are my words, these are my motivations, these are my actions, these are mine. Well, it's not. This is the program sticking its little fingers into everybody. You cannot escape it. There may be that very rare day that nothing that's there in the program directly impacts you, but it's rare. You don't pay any attention to it. You don't think of yourself as being something that is always conditioned. You don't. You think of yourself as being in control of your life. You're not a puppet on a string, are you? Are you? If you're not aware of the program, you're dancing to each string pull. You have the sun today in the 6th gate, the gate of conflict. The gate of conflict opened up to the possibility of intimacy. So let's say that you're somebody that has the 59th gate and you don't have the 6. Today, it is active in you. And that means that today is a day where you're likely to become intimate with somebody that you shouldn't be intimate with. And you'll think it's all so perfect. Oh, how wonderful it is. Oh, how close I feel to this person. And you think it's you. Human beings have no control because they don't know what's going on. The fascinating thing about the nature of mechanics is that mechanics gives you an opportunity to take advantage of what's going on. You cannot fight the program. You cannot stop these forces from touching you. You cannot. But you can stop them from twisting your mind. You can stop the program from dictating what you're going to say and what you're going to do, and when you're going to say it, and how you're going to do it, and with whom. This is what strategy and authority is. It's very difficult for most human beings to grasp that the thing that defines their very life is in essence their enemy. Your life is defined by your mind. Everything is defined by mind. This is how we live our lives. We live it through these minds. And yet, for all the power of this mind to define our experience here on this plane, it is not equipped to guide us, and it's a sucker for the program. Think about what we are like. Think about the mechanism, this binary mechanism, and the way in which this binary mechanism operates. We're stuck in a genetically oriented bioform, and the way in which that bioform operates is that it replicates, it reproduces through bonding. And not only does it reproduce through bonding, but the only way in which the reproduction is going to be viable is that if those that are bonding are different. Isn't that a trap? And everybody knows it, and every culture has learned it. It is why we do not make love to our sisters and brothers. And it's not because of morality, it's because of genetics. It's about what happens when you become inbred, what happens when the possibilities of mutation becomes negated, and you end up on a dead-end street. Hot atomics, this whole reproductive cycle, the more possibilities, the more differentiation leads to more opportunities for mutation. By our very genetics, we are designed to be attracted to what we are not. You can see it in every design. Looking at the personality, the difference between what is white and what is not. That whiteness, those receptors that pull you, that draw you, that seduce you, that set you on fire, that make you think that you have to have it, that you have to have what is not you. And all to serve the genetics, all to serve the viability of the form. Look at how successful we are, in numbers, the billions of us dominating this plane, always seeking what is different, what is not us, and spending our entire lives believing that what we don't have, we lack, so that you're never at peace, you're never satisfied, you're never a success, you never get the surprise that is here for everyone. You get the same mindless, purposeless drudgery of dragging these forms across this plane and trying to survive. We are not creatures that are here to simply work at survival. We're here to be able to enjoy the benefits of these forms and the opportunities for consciousness that they bring. And yet, until you are able to define who you are, until you are able to understand the forces that impinge on you, that deny you the right to be yourself, only then are you going to understand that there is only one thing that stands in your way, you. Because it's not about any them, and it's not about any it. It's just you. We're mechanisms, these forms. Operate them correctly, and you have the opportunities in this life to be aware. But go blindly, and the program is what's controlling you. The program is defining your life. The program is defining your conflict today, your crisis today, because it's in the air. You can smell it. The whole planet has the 1057th channel today. The whole planet has the benefit of perfected form. The whole planet is going to think that they have exactly the right behavior, so to speak. And so many are going to fall flat on their faces because it's not them, and it's what they want, and they think they have it, but it's not theirs. How easy human beings are manipulated. Sheep to the program. Neutrino forecasts try to give people a sense of the energy that is there. It's a fabulous daily insight into the way in which we are being programmed. And it's not that you have to learn it, it's not about you even having to study it, but it is the awareness of the weather. One of the most common things in human intercourse is to talk about the weather. You want to talk about something in common that's neutral. You talk about the weather. Nice day today, hey. Yeah, nice day. Rain's coming. Good, right. Well, the neutrino weather is something to be aware of. It's a good thing to know when the planet is being emotionalized. It's a good thing to know when it's cranked up. It's a good thing to know when there is trouble on its way. Think about lines. It's very difficult for people to understand how deeply they are conditioned, how pervasive conditioning is on this planet. What do we have? Right now we have a fourth line, so it's a fourth line day. So what's a fourth line day all about? It's a day of opportunism. It's a day of brotherhood/sisterhood. It's a good day to communicate, to network with others, to make friends with people. It's the line of the opportunist. But the thing about the opportunist is they says, never leave a lover until you have another lover, never leave a job until you have another job, and don't leave your house until you have another place to go to. One of the things about a fourth line day is that it brings a number of consequences if you get trapped in it. The fact that there is this program there and the program is impacting everyone, that everyone is being pulled towards that as a possibility. So if you were going to check the phone records today during this fourth line day, you'd see there would be a lot more phones calls than 2 or 3 days ago on a first line day, as an example, where everybody is being conditioned to be introspective, being conditioned to looking inward. The other thing about a fourth line day is that it's a line of influence, and that influence ranges from being able to influence somebody because you do have the ability to communicate with them and have something to communicate with them. The other thing is that you can influence them by giving them a cold or passing along something else, because it's one of the things about fourth line days. And what it means in a world like today on a fourth line day where you have a fourth line theme everywhere, this is the kind of day where something can begin to spread. I have a young son in public school. This is the kind of day where one kid with a runny nose would give everybody a runny nose because it's a fourth line day. This is the program at work. And it's the program at work because it meets absolutely no resistance. Think about that. There is no resistance. How can there be? Humanity is not aware of it. Humanity doesn't understand that they're in this grid. They don't know how they connect to it. They don't know how they're influenced by it, manipulated by it, pushed by it, moved by it like lemmings going over the edge. That's how I know you cannot save them. One person at a time, yes. But if you're really going to grasp what human design is all about, not in terms of analysis, but in the general sense of this knowledge, is to see that it is the mechanics of the Maya. And what the mechanics reveal is that we are totally in the thrall of the mechanism. It does not mean that we do not have possibilities within that. This is what knowledge brings. But it also says irrevocably that the Maya is what it is and we cannot escape it. It can be very quaint to refer to it all as illusion, but it is the illusion that we live after all. This is our Maya. This is our world. The plane in the way in which we see it, experience it. And in order to be able to survive in that illusion, to be able to fulfill your potential in that Maya, you need to understand the mechanism. Otherwise, you're lost, because you're never going to have anything that is going to be able to deal with these forces that impinge on you, that you will always be subject to their whim, always, always. It's not up there, it's all in here. Every gate, every line, it's either there as an activation, or in most cases, it's there as a receptor. The whole mandala is in you. As a matter of fact, everything is in you. It's why here is where the story is. The story is how you live your life, not how you allow the program to distort your process, to rob you of the potential of your awareness. And you have to see it, you have to feel it, you have to know it's real. It's not something you can believe from me. It's something that you have to experiment as I did. I sat there and I watched that moon and felt what it did to me. And one of the easiest things about the program is that any given day that you look at the program, don't just look at it in terms of yourself. Watch your world around you and you will see, truly like puppets on a string, to a point that you don't know whether to laugh or cry, that they will all play out the drama of any given day's program, and every day brings its drama with its nuances that move and slightly shift as we go in this dance around the wheel. We're all just taking it in, and you cannot stop it. You cannot. I have an open emotional system. I can never stop the emotional wave from moving through me. But when I watched the moon impact me emotionally, for the first time in my life, I was liberated. It was the first time I actually felt a sense of genuine freedom. As somebody with an undefined emotional system, I was constantly being conditioned by the emotional wave. My whole process was erratic because I was capable of distorting to great highs and great lows, all of which led to a lot of chaos. I ended up as the byproduct of that, really running away from so many things in this life, not facing them, not dealing with them, just turning my back on them, the avoidance of confrontation and truth that's part of anyone who has an open solar plexus. And in that moment, in the survival of the madness of my experience, to actually feel the impact of the moon in me, well, I understood something. I understood I wasn't an emotional being. I understood for the first time that I am a receptor of emotionality, but I was not in and of myself emotional. I didn't have a problem. I always thought I had a problem. The program is so distorting. The program is always playing around with you. The last 2 years have had all kinds of activations impacting my emotional system, the program turning on my emotions. But I know the mechanics. They're not mine. They belong to this instrument and the way in which this vehicle interacts with others. but it is not something that I am involved with because it's not something that determines whether I am going to do this or that. There are really two options. They're very clearly laid out. If you honor your strategy and authority, basically what you're doing is that you're operating out of what is fixed in you, what defines you as somebody different from anyone else, what defines you as somebody who has the potential to be able to fulfill their purpose. And then you have the whiteness, the openness. This is where everybody ends up. Well, most human beings. Not living out who they are, but living out only the possibility of what they're not, chasing it, looking for it. And the program likes to fool them and tell them, hey, you have it. Think about that person with an open mind. They have an open ajna center. They always want to feel certain, but they can't feel certain about anything. And on that day, somebody comes up to them and asks them the most important question in their life. And on that day, it so happens that one of the planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, whatever, is exactly in the gate that is going to define their ajna center. So they're going to have a sense of certainty, and they're going to say, I'm certain. And whether that certainty is yes or no, they're going to feel certain about it. It's not who they are. This is not the way they are intended to make decisions as themselves. They cannot trust that mind. No one can. They just can't. The program rules. There is nothing to confront it. There is nothing to deflect it. It simply is there. It is the process that we live through. When I look every day at the program and I start my day, I'm looking at my world. I'm looking at this plane. I'm looking at all the things that go on in this plane. There are no surprises in that. Truly, there are not. These are just vast movements of an ongoing program. It's a drama, an ongoing drama. Day after day, certain themes are interwoven and conditioned into humanity, and everybody is blind to it. When this knowledge came into the world, it came into the world to literally break that veil, to be able to stick your head through the sky and look at that and say, okay, there is nothing I can do about that, but there is something I can do for myself, that I do not have to live like that I am not intended to live like that. And if you're caught in the program, you're caught in the fears. The program is not modern, it's an old program, and it's rooted in strategic fears. These deep fears is what drives the program, because this is what drives the not self. Look at those open centers that you have in your design. This is where all the fear is that you dwell on in your life. It is all the basic fears that drive the way your mind works and the way your mind makes decisions. The fear that you cannot be what you're not. How insane is that? Human beings so frightened because they think they have to be something that they're not, that they have to get somewhere where they don't have to get to. It's such madness. This is what drives everyone forward. They're all driven in this program by fear. Fear of not having or fear of losing. It doesn't matter. It's just fears. This world is embedded with fears. This is not what we're about. When we look at the societies historically that we have frowned upon, generally speaking, it's usually those societies in which there is this horrific control over the people. We live in a program that controls the planet through fear. As any totalitarian regime will do, it controls you through fear. So you have all these human beings running around and they're all afraid. Scratch any of them and you will smell that fear. And it's the program, and it's the conditioning, and it's the ignorance. Let's give you another look. I had a really wonderful privilege. It started a couple of years ago in the International Human Design School. I began doing a program called Quarter by Quarter. When you're looking at the wheel, if you go to the very center, you'll see the boxes and the configurations that we were looking at. That is the 4 corners, the center, the camel, the dog, the 4 corners, and the 16 faces. When you get to the 16 faces, these are the 16 faces of the Godheads. And you can actually see these faces thematically that are laid out around the wheel, literally in relationship to the wheel. When you look at the wheel and you look at the 64 hexagrams, if you break up those 64 hexagrams into the 4 quarters, every quarter has 16 gates, and each of those quarters can be broken up further into another quarter. In other words, 4 quarters of 4 gates each. Basically, this is the way in which the Godhead influences us. In other words, what you're looking at here is a thematic description of the shroud of crystal bundle consciousness, the way in which it is woven around the wheel, or what we call the wheel, because we experience it that way, and that these are forces that specifically condition us on a day-to-day basis. It's one of the reasons that forecasts the weather, because this is an essential ingredient in it. To be able to introduce anyone who is interested into the day-to-day movement through the mythology and the genetics. In other words, Basically, what we're dealing with are basic fundamental themes. Let's say, for example, that you take any image that you see here and you look at that Godhead and you look at the gates that are involved. If you look at those gates, if you go to the side boxes on the outside, you will see that each and every one of these gates also has a genetic configuration. In other words, we're not just simply talking about the fact that we are being programmed as a personality consciousness, but it is to understand that we are being programmed at a genetic level. This is at a genetic level. This is going into our cells. This is not something that is just sort of bubbling by on the mental plane. What it is a dense conditioning deep within each and every one of us. It's quite something incredible to think about. These are not influences that are psychological and contrived, artistic, if you will. This is not about saying, as a Greek would say, the gods. This is about pointing your finger and saying, this is where this Godhead lives, and this is where that Godhead lives, and this is what they bring to us in the program. And they condition us deeply. I think one of the most fascinating studies in human design is studies that are rooted in the mandala itself. I've had some incredible experiences, teaching experiences over the years and doing all the lines, doing all the gates, taking these journeys around the wheel. No journey was more profound for me than quarter by quarter. I think it's one of the most fantastic journeys you can take in understanding the way in which the whole configuration is laid out. Because each and every one of these Godheads are a combination of 4 gates, each of which have a unique chemistry that both binds them and separates them, which allows them to act as instruments of the influences of that particular sector, place in the wheel. Something to understand is that this background shroud of the crystals of consciousness is where the programming agency is, because this is where the differentiated neutrino ocean is broken down into these various components that we graphically lay out in the wheel. And all of that is pouring in on you and me. And it's pouring in at every possible level that you can imagine. Remember, 3 trillion neutrinos a second pass through this space, 3 million millions a second. The density of this neutrino ocean is extraordinary, and all of these influences are part of this whole process in which we are suspended, I would guess is the best way of seeing it, in this incredible ocean of data and information, all of it going deep within us. When you begin to look at it that way, when you begin to see the overwhelming order that is there in the mechanism, when you begin to understand that everything that you thought was independent and creative has been a byproduct of vast manipulation, that your own life, your own false purpose as a not-self, all of this is something that can shatter in the moment that you grasp it, in the moment that you see that this is not what you're here for, that you're not here to go blindly along. And let me tell you, once you know this, you cannot shake it and get rid of it and go back, because there is a way out, your way out. We're at the end of something. I am not somebody that was given beginning knowledge. I was given end knowledge. Part of the joy of ends are ends well made. To get to that place where one fulfills the possibilities that have been there. Lifetime after lifetime, humanity goes to its grave unfulfilled. It is not about the intense identification with the vehicle. This is just the ride. There is so much more. And yet so much more is impossible to touch unless one surrenders to this mechanism, surrenders to the way in which this mechanism can operate, because only then can you separate yourself from the influence of the program that hangs over you. I enjoy it all. I like knowing the way it works. But I do not bow down to them. I do not bow down to anything. There is only I. There's nothing else. I am here to live out the purpose of this thing, nothing more, nothing less. The endless conditioning forces all homogenizing the planet. It's all about the mind. If you experiment with your strategy and authority, what you're doing is giving decision-making over to where it belongs. We're stuck out there on the plane with this mundane little mind running around trying to take care of things. These are inanimate objects filtering a vast ocean of material. Everything about this knowledge is about the empowerment of uniqueness, of individuality. It is about learning how to make decisions as yourself. There's a great gift in this journey. I know. The moment that the mind is not in torment, it's a movie. It is, after all, just a play. Take a look when you look at themes for the day and take a look at the motivations for the day. Everybody is getting it, and nobody knows, basically, that they're getting it. Nobody knows that they're being conditioned by that. I could have been an incredible black magician. Never tell anybody anything about any of this, and then you can understand and manipulate every human being, couldn't you? Because they're all just lost in the movie. just playing out those not-self parts on the stage of life. Think about that. Think about what it means that there is suddenly a theme influence and suddenly for 4 hours everybody is afraid. And it doesn't mean that everybody is afraid at the same level. It doesn't, it never does. It's the whole spectrum. For so many people, when there is something there and they don't know why it's there, and then they start to think about it, and then they start to get concerned about it, and then they have to make some kind of decision about it, and then they have to go and do something about it, and then it all blows up in their face and they wonder why, and then they think about why. The movement that you make a decision that is conditioned is the moment that you've entered into a tangled web. Oh boy. And it goes on and on and on. Everything is about movement. It all comes back to movement. Everything is about movement. It's about understanding that because we are moving, because we are objects moving in space, the most essential thing to grasp is who is driving. Within the context of human design, it says you have a driver. Let the vehicle look after business. Let the driver drive the vehicle. Let the monopole and the design crystal do their work. Follow your strategy and authority.